Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is Letters to Blue. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Every week I take some of the letters that have been submitted by viewer comments through emails or from Instagram, and I roll it all into one episode to bring you guys a more in-depth discussion on some of the things that are on you guys' mind. So if you have a letter you would like to submit for a future episode of Letters to Blue, I hope that you will comment below or send me an email. I will include my email address in the description box of this video, so please check that out. And let's go ahead and get started. Thank you to everybody who submitted their letter. First letter. In 2003, I got an RHIT from college. I worked for 5 years as an RHIT. I took a job outside of health information for 11 years. I am 45. Should I get an RHIT again? I just want to code. I understand and will do better this time. Or is a CCA or a CPC good enough? Here's the thing. If you are just interested in doing the coding part, I would just go with the certification. I'm assuming because you're asking if you could get an RHIT again that you let your designation lapse by not reporting those continuing education units. These designations and these credentials are living documents. You have to be able to maintain them by reporting your continuing education units. So with this said, if you are just wanting to get your certification, you can contact AHIMA and see if you need to do anything to update because if you've let your credential lapse. Contact them and see, obviously you have met the educational requirements because you've been through the RHIT program to sit for the CCS. But again, I would contact AHIMA just to be sure because, again, it's been so long. And the CCS, if you don't know, is a Certified Coding Specialist, and that is a credential with AHIMA, and that is for both inpatient and outpatient coding. This is the gold standard of medical coding credentials. So if you want to take this one, that is totally fine. The CCA does cover both inpatient and outpatient as well. But it is considered entry level, and the CPC covers only the outpatient side. So there is plenty for you to choose from, but I would do my research and see what you really want to do, like what setting you want to be in, and go that route and do the certifications rather than go through a program all over again. Okay, so next question. YouTube leads me to your videos. Woo woo! Thank you, YouTube. So I barely subscribed yesterday. Your videos sure do help. I was going for the HIT, RHIT program. Now that I've seen you explain the differences, I am just going to go for the CCA for now. Unless I get asked to be a manager, then I'll go for the RHIT. Haha. I am making a change from the oil and gas field into healthcare. I like the tech side of it. It is a whole different world and challenging, but I do enjoy the education. Thank you for your kind words. That's the great thing about medical coding is that it is open for anybody, regardless of what your background is. You don't necessarily have to come from a medical background in order to study for this, get your certification, and move forward. It is important to know what those degree programs are for. A lot of people get into the degree programs and think, oh yeah, I can be a coder with this. And a lot of times in the real world, these employers are going to want an additional credential along with those designations because of the simple fact that those designations are designed to be the managers or the supervisors or the auditors or the educators of facilities. So if coding is what you want to do, then you want to go the certification route. And a lot of times it really all depends on what you're doing. There's really not a whole big difference between a degree designation and a credential. So that is something to be aware of because a lot of times people think that if I get a degree, I'm going to make more money. That's not necessarily the case with medical coding and the health information field because it just depends, again, on what you're doing and what your capacity is in that facility. So start off with a credential, especially if you have no background in this at all and you don't really know what you're doing. You want to go in the way that is most economical. You don't want to go in and spending thousands of dollars and then not really enjoying it or not really liking it. I've heard from so many people who get the degrees And then they're like, I wish I would have known all of this stuff before I got into this because I don't like it. And this field isn't for everybody, unfortunately. I mean, I love it. So people ask me, do you think I'll like it? You're asking the most biased person. But it really all depends on the individual. And it depends on how you look at challenges. Because sometimes people get very frustrated because they don't understand something, or maybe something is not making sense and there's nobody around to explain things to them. So sometimes people get kind of stuck, and if they don't have somebody to ask, that's what makes it more difficult. This is why I always tell you guys, you have to learn how to do your research. Because when people come to me with questions, and some of the stuff I've never heard of, like there was ICD-03, which I had never heard of before, but it is for oncology coding. And I'm like, oh, I had never heard of that, you know, and I've worked in oncology before myself. And there was another one that was asking about a credential that it's for like home health. And I'm like, I have never heard of that. So I'm learning along with you guys as well on some of this stuff. But I know how to research and to be able to find these answers, because when people are coming to me with these questions and they're not really sure, and I'm like, well, I've never heard of that. Let me do the research. And then I find it. I'm like, okay. So that's why I always tell you guys it's important to learn how to do your research, because there's going to be things that you're going to learn, and there's going to be things that you have never heard of, and you have to know how to find those answers, or you have to know at least where to go to find some place where you can get started on finding those answers. So that's kind of why I created my channel as well. So, but yes, that's the great thing about medical coding, is that it's really open for anyone, but it's not for everyone. And that is something to realize. That's why I always hope that people do their research before they get into it and spend thousands of dollars. And yes, I am always going to be about that. I'm always going to be about trying to find the cheapest way to get in. I got in through the WIOA program. I went to their program and they paid for everything. And all I had to do was pay for part of my test. So that is why I am very thankful. I'm in a career that I love, and I don't feel like I'm working anymore because of it. And because of that, I get to share all of this with you. So I am very happy to be able to do that, because I don't know where in my life I would be if I wasn't a medical coder. So best wishes to you on your journey, and thank you so much for your letter. All right. So next letter. This was a late addition to the lineup, but I was really glad because I really liked the way that it was written. So thank you again to the viewer who sent this in, as with all of the viewers that I am reading today. She says, "Hi, Blue. As a current student for medical billing and coding, I have been watching your channel to get some insight as to what to expect after school and how to prepare myself for the workforce. I was wondering if you could do a video, or maybe just even make a list of the extra steps for us students can take to make ourselves competitive when it comes time to enter the workforce. I know that we can't necessarily get certified or specialize in anything without experience, but do you have any recommendations on additional skills we can acquire to impress employers? Or are there any worthwhile smaller certifications or any additional education that we can acquire through CMS or any other groups that would help boost our value that we could add to our resume? I'm just trying to figure out that secret ingredient to separate myself from the other applicants that would get employers' attention. Thank you so much for all of your insight. I really value everything that I've learned from you so far. Take care." Thank you very much for your kind words. Here's the thing. When it comes to the secret ingredient is actually in the details. So it's going to start with your resume. And what does it look like? Because as far as like investing in other smaller certifications, when you are applying to be a medical coder, they are looking for medical coding credentials. They don't care about everything else. And I know that people sometimes think that if they get a slew of credentials after their name, that it will make them more desirable to employers. If you have a slew of credentials after your name, they're going to expect experience with those credentials. So, and a lot of times employers are going to understand what it is that you're adding on. And if it looks like you're just adding on credentials just to add on credentials, it's going to make them pass you over even more because they're most concerned with experience. Yes, how are you supposed to get experience if no one will hire you? This is where how you're presenting yourself comes into play. Yes, there's tons of new coders, but you also have to remember that there's tons of people that are already in the health information field that are going to retire or that are just going to quit and leave the job. So they are going to need new medical coders. It's going to depend on how well you're telling them about you and how you are putting yourself in the right place at the right time. A lot of times people will see that they require 1 to 2 years, 3 years of experience, and then they won't apply. You have to apply anyway, regardless of whether they're asking for experience or not, because of the simple fact that they don't know that you even exist. So a lot of times employers can't, if employers cannot find qualified candidates in the area, they will take a chance on somebody new. But how will they take a chance on you if you don't put yourself in that area, right? So that is something to think about. And on your resume, a lot of people are asking for resume tips. I posted the resume tips video that I did last year on my LinkedIn. I will probably post it in the community tab again as well, and probably do another one, updated one pretty soon. I don't know. But with that, on that resume, cover letters, and all those other tips that I have for you guys on that video, it is about the details. You have to look at all the skills that you have, because yes, you may not have any experience in the medical field at all, but I can guarantee you probably have some skills that are transferable. When you were in school, did you learn anatomy, medical terminology, and pathophysiology? Of course you did, because if you're going through a standard program, that is normally part of a standard program. So you have to put that on your resume. Well, Blue, it's just common sense that you would learn that stuff. Why do I have to put that on my resume? Because a lot of times these resumes are being reviewed by computer systems. So they're going to be looking for words that are from the job posting. And if you have that matches the job posting, okay, this candidate looks qualified, so we're going to go ahead and send this on. So then the employer is going to be able to review that and see, oh, okay, well, this person has medical terminology, anatomy, and pathophysiology. Great. That's something that you can put on your resume to get you noticed. Also, your computer skills. Do you have Microsoft Office Suite skills? Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, Excel. Do you have these? Put that on your resume, because again, it's a detail, but they're going to expect to see those things if you're going to be in an office environment. They're going to expect those types of skills, because using those programs is quite simple. And there's lots of YouTube tutorial videos on those, which is really great, especially if you don't have a lot of experience. And I will be honest with you guys, it wasn't until a few years ago, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that I started learning how to use PowerPoint. So I didn't know how to use PowerPoint, but I do remember having the other office stuff on my resume. So if you're bilingual, that's another thing. If you speak Spanish or if you speak another language, you need to make sure that it's on there. Your English, and a lot of people will discount this, because even in the job postings, because I've done the job postings explained videos before, and I probably need to do some current ones because it's been a while since I've done some. But if you notice, a lot of them say that the candidate must be able to read, write, and speak English fluently. And so that is something that you can put on your resume, because even though you're like, yeah, the English is my first language, you still need to put it on there. Because a lot of times when employers are looking for candidates, they're looking for people that can communicate with these providers. Now, these providers, it's not always easy, all right? And they expect a level of polishness when you are speaking, where they expect you to be able to communicate very clearly. If you're, well, I'm sorry, no. Because that provider is going to just say, okay, I'm not listening to this person. And it is very easy for them to be like that, because they don't have time for you to be wasting their time. You have to be very straightforward, and you have to be at a point where you're still being respectful and professional, but at the same time, you're being very clear, because they need to know that you're there for business and you're not there to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. You have to go in there because you're their partner. And that's the thing that a lot of times people don't think about, is that medical coders are the partner for the provider, because we have their back when it comes to how their documentation is being translated. And if it is not being translated to the utmost specificity, there's a lot that can be lost out on. Not only does the provider lose, but most importantly, the patient loses out, because a coder can literally be the difference between, you know, the patient having to pay out extra because they didn't select the correct code. So that's why you have to make sure that you're on top of your game at all times with code selections, with procedure selections, because it's important for the patient. And again, it's important for the provider. So working with them, that's going to be a huge part of what you're going to do in the future. And that's not always a subject that's talked about either. But that is one of the most favorite things that I get to do. I like communicating with my providers. Yes, some of them do get intimidating. I'm not going to lie. But it is going to be about your own personal growth and self-training. Because yes, this is stuff that's not going to be covered in school. They don't have a class that says how to communicate with providers. That's something you got to do on your own. You have to learn how to do these really good communication techniques. You have to be able to read body language, because if you are speaking and saying something to a provider and a provider is not absorbing it, and you can tell by looking at their body language, you know you can switch it up. You can switch it up, you can change your approach, and you know that it will be even more effective when you are communicating, because you have that extra skill. So going back to the whole thing, there is no little secret. It is all about the details. It is all about making sure that your resume looks good. All of your skills are there. And if you're having a hard time with your resume, there's tons of free templates online and lots of videos online as well that can help you break it down one by one. I do offer resume reviews, and so if you're interested in that, my rates are in the description box below. I don't recommend getting a professional resume writer only because the cadence of your cover letter and your resume needs to match you. It needs to be able to say, okay, I know this person wrote it, so this is how they organically are. So that is the thing when it comes to those types of things. And as far as like I said, all these other smaller certifications, they're just concerned with whether or not you're certified. And when they have that, then they're like, okay, can you code? Do you know your guidelines? And that is really key, is knowing those guidelines, because when you are applying for these positions and say, for instance, they're going to give you a chance. Okay, great. This is a brand new person. Let's test them. Let's see how much they know about their guidelines. So they may ask you questions about the guidelines. That's why I tell you guys to review the guidelines frequently, because when you do that, there's nobody that's going to be able to touch you, because that is a gift. That is a wonderful thing to be able to have in your own personal knowledge arsenal, if you will. You'll be able to know and recite guidelines. You don't have to memorize them, but you do have to know them. And again, I do recommend reading the entire thing once per week, so that way you can be able to recall them faster. And again, nobody would be able to touch you because you'll know. And that is one of those things. So cover letters need to be why you would be a good candidate. It can't look like everybody else's, and it can't sound run-of-the-mill. I'm a hard worker, I'm a team player. It needs to be about organically you. Why would the skills that you have be great for this company? Why would you make a great addition to our team? That's the thing. Why? So people like people that are organic. If you see a lot of these successful people, they're successful because they are themselves, and they are true to who they are and things like that. So, and they have passion for what they do. So that is, again, why they are successful. So being yourself and being straightforward and telling them why. Why would you make a good candidate? Why would you serve our company well? That is the question that you need to answer. But answer it very briefly, no more than 3 paragraphs. And it's 2 to 3 sentences on each paragraph. So make it very straightforward, but also make it to where they're going to want to meet you. So that way you can be prepared. So that is my advice there on that one. And another one. Let's see. Thanks for making these very informative and helpful videos about interview tips and preparing for interviews. Personally, it has helped to give me the much needed confidence that I am trying to get back into the workforce after a long break. Very thankful and grateful for your videos. Continue giving us useful real-life tips and insights from your experience. Well, of course, that is what I do, you know. And so, I mean, to me, it's great to be able to share these things with you guys. It's great because these are things that I really wish somebody would have told me in the beginning. And so to be able to share this with those that are new in the next generation of medical coders is really a privilege for me. So the other one is, this was just the kick in the butt that I need. And this was for a medical terminology video. This was just the kick in the butt I needed to realize that I was just trying to push through the reading as fast as I could instead of really trying to absorb and retain the information that I was reading. Thank you for taking the time to make a video like this. I've gone back 6 chapters now to start at the beginning, making flashcards and really working to get this information to stick with me. Thanks again. So, of course, when it comes to studying and learning, I always recommend flashcards. I'm going to recommend flashcards till I'm blue in the face because of the simple fact that having those things frequently and around you and in front of you and constantly like running through and doing those drills is really going to help you. I do have my Patreon channel where I do exercises. I put up worksheets and I do crossword puzzles and word searches. And it's all about anatomy and medical terminology. And I use a lot of mnemonic devices to be able to help to be able to retain this retain this information so that way it'll be easier to just recall. And the more that you study and the more you're repetitive about it, the more it will stick and sink in instead of just trying to fly through, because it's not going to help you when you get out in the real world and you're going to start applying and they're going to ask you these questions. That's just my advice. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. I am almost at 10,000, guys. I am in the home stretch of 10,000. So I am very excited. So I hope you will help me get there. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up. So if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider, or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.